All right, so we're diving into give and take, huh?
Yeah, it looks like someone's really interested in this whole giving thing.
Haha, yeah, you said over a ton of excerpts.
I mean, it's a pretty interesting idea.
Right, like givers actually coming out on top.
Totally flips the script on that whole, like, dog-eat-dog world thing.
Definitely. But okay, before we get into all that, let's talk about Adam Grant for a sec. Why should we even be listening to this guy?
Well, for starters, he's the youngest tenured professor at Wharton.
Okay, impressive.
And consistently their top-rated teacher, too.
So not just like some out-of-touch academic.
No, not at all. His research is all about work and motivation, real-world stuff, and, I mean, some serious heavy hitters have praised his work.
Yeah, we're talking big names, right? Like the CEO of Merck
Kenneth Frazier, yep.
and, what was it, Senior VP of People Operations at Google?
That's right, Laszlo Bock.
So clearly people are taking him seriously.
Oh, yeah, these aren't just random endorsements.
Okay, so we've established Adam Grant knows his stuff. Now let's get to the heart of the book here. He breaks people down into these three reciprocity styles: takers, matchers, and givers. I think we all kind of get what those mean, but can you flesh them out a little? Like using examples from the book.
Of course. So takers, right? Those are the people who always put themselves first. They're focused on what they can get from others, and not always in the nicest way.
Like taking advantage of people.
Exactly. The book actually uses Ken Lay as an example.
Oh, Enron.
Yeah, the classic corporate greed guy.
What was it? He had those giant photos of himself everywhere.
Oh, yeah, and apparently there's research on that. CEOs with bigger portraits tend to be more, taker-ish.
So if I see a giant CEO photo, I should watch my back.
Maybe, haha. But anyway, matchers are different. They're all about fairness and even exchange.
You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
Exactly, very tit for tat. And then there are the givers. These are the folks who just, prioritize helping others.
Without expecting anything in return.
Often, yes. One great example is David Hornick.
Who's that?
He's a venture capitalist, has this massive network, and he's known to help entrepreneurs even if they don't end up working with him.
Wow, so he's not just in it for the money.
Nope, genuinely wants to see people succeed.
That's really cool. Okay, so we've got our takers, matchers, and givers. And here's where it gets interesting. Grant's arguing that givers are often the most successful, which seems kind of counterintuitive, right?
It does, doesn't it? But when you look closer, it makes sense.
So why is that?
Well, for one, givers are amazing networkers.
Because they just help everyone.
They build these strong, genuine connections, and those lead to, opportunities you wouldn't expect.
The book mentions Adam Rifkin, right? The 5-minute favor guy.
Oh, yeah, he built this massive LinkedIn network.
Just by helping people.
And it wasn't even strategic for him. It would just genuine.
It obviously paid off in the end.
Totally. It's not about being manipulative. It's about those real relationships.
Okay, so networking, that makes sense. What else?
Givers are also great at building trust, creating that psychological safety.
Which is important for what?
Well, if you know someone's got your back, you're more likely to share ideas, take risks.
Makes sense.
They don't hoard information or take all the credit.
The book mentions George Meyer, right? From The Simpsons?
Oh, yeah. He's all about sharing ideas.
And it's worked out pretty well for him.
Huge success. And he avoids that responsibility bias,
What's that?
Taking all the credit for wins and blaming others for losses.
Ah, right. So it's like a shared responsibility kind of thing.
Exactly. Very collaborative.
And that obviously helps with creativity. And
Absolutely. Okay, so we've got networking and trust. But givers are also great at spotting potential in others.
like seeing the best in people.
Yeah, they see that diamond in the rough.
Cool.
The book talks about C.A. Skender.
Remind me who that is.
He's an accounting professor who helps his students reach their full potential.
Even if they're not like straight A students.
Yeah, he doesn't write anyone off. He sees their potential.
So it's like believing in them even when they don't believe in themselves.
Exactly, and that can be incredibly powerful.
Okay, so that's pretty amazing. But there's one more thing about givers that's kind of surprising.
What's that?
They often use what Grant calls powerless communication. But it actually makes them more persuasive.
Wait, less assertive, more persuasive?
Right. How does that even work?
Well, think about it. If someone's super pushy, it makes you defensive, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
But if someone's humble, asking for advice, it's disarming.
I see.
The book talks about this marketing exec, Don Lane. He used a disclaimer and a tag question when pitching his idea.
Like he was unsure of himself?
Yeah, but it made his colleagues more open to it.
Wow, that's wild.
It downplayed his authority.
And this is backed by research, right?
Oh, yeah. Studies show that powerless communication builds trust.
It's like the opposite of what we're taught about being assertive.
Totally. And givers are naturally good at it.
Okay, so we covered a lot here. We've got the 3 styles, and it seems like giving can lead to all these benefits. But it can't be all sunshine and roses, right?
Well, there's a crucial distinction the book makes. There are actually 2 types of givers, selfless and otherish.
What's the difference?
It's all about how they approach giving and how it impacts them.
And why does it matter so much for success?
Well, selfless givers, they're always putting others first. even if it means sacrificing their own well-being.
Like to their detriment.
Exactly.
That doesn't sound very sustainable.
It's not. They can get burnt out, resentful. The book talks about Conray, this teacher who just gave and gave until she couldn't anymore.
Classic compassion fatigue.
Yeah, and it's a real risk for selfless givers. Other risk givers are different. They're still generous, but they protect their own interests too.
So they have boundaries.
Exactly. They set limits, use strategies like sincerity screening.
What's that?
It's all about learning to identify takers.
Oh, so you don't get taken advantage of.
Right. The book has this example of Lillian Bauer. She got really good at spotting those who were just trying to use her.
So she wouldn't waste her time and energy on them.
Exactly. It's about being generous, but smart about it.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's not about being a doormat, it's about finding that balance.
That's it. It's not being a giver, but not to your own detriment.
And that's why it's so important for success, right?
Absolutely. You can't pour from an empty cup.
That's a great way to put it. Okay, so we've got these two types of givers, but how do we actually become more otherish givers?
Well, that's what we'll dive into next time.
Perfect. I can't wait to hear more.
It's going to be good. You know, one thing that really hit me about this book is how it changes how we think about success. It's not just about, climbing the ladder and getting rich. It's about having a positive impact, leaving a legacy of giving.
Yeah, that's a pretty big shift in perspective. It's like success isn't about what you take, but what you give.
Exactly. It's realizing that we're all connected and our actions have these ripple effects.
Moving from scarcity to abundance, believing there's enough success to go around.
Exactly. That's what makes this giver philosophy so powerful. It's not about sacrificing your own success to help others. It's about achieving both.
Expanding the pie, so to speak. Everyone wins.
Right. And that brings up another interesting point. The book talks about recognizing and celebrating giving, like with the love machine.
Oh yeah, we touched on that earlier. Can you remind me how that works?
Sure. So it's basically a virtual kudos board where colleagues can acknowledge each other's contributions, express gratitude for acts of giving.
So it's public, everyone sees it.
Exactly. It reinforces those behaviors, builds a culture of appreciation.
A positive feedback loop for generosity.
I like that. And it really works. People feel valued, motivated.
So it goes beyond just individual acts. It becomes a cultural thing.
Exactly. Imagine if companies focused as much on giving back as they do on profits.
That'd be a pretty different world.
It would, but I think it's needed. We've seen what happens with too much greed.
Yeah, not pretty.
We need a new model based on collaboration, compassion.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've talked about the benefits of giving, but we haven't really talked about reciprocity. Grant says successful givers aren't pushovers. They set boundaries, protect themselves. How do they do that?
It's a balancing act, for sure. But the book gives some good tips. He talks about sincerity screening.
Remind me what that is.
It's basically learning to spot the takers so you can adjust your approach.
Making sure your generosity is going to the right people.
Exactly. It's not about being cynical, just being aware.
So you don't get taken advantage of.
Right. So you pay attention to people's behavior, their words. Takers often reveal themselves,
How so?
Well, they might be overly flattering, always asking for favors, quick to take credit, but slow to help others.
So just being observant, noticing those little things.
Exactly. And if you sense someone's a taker, you set boundaries. You politely decline, limit your interaction.
Protect your own energy so you can give to those who deserve it.
Exactly. And remember, giving doesn't have to be huge. Small acts of kindness can go a long way.
The 5-minute favors, right?
Yes, just finding little ways to help, offering to listen, proofreading, making an introduction.
All those little things add up.
They do, and the best part is it doesn't take much effort.
Okay, so I'm wondering, can anyone be a giver? Or are some people just naturally more inclined to it?
That's a great question, and I think Grant would say giving is a skill, not a personality trait.
So you can learn it,
You can develop it with practice.
like a muscle you can strengthen.
Exactly. The more you give, the easier it becomes. It's like building a habit. Start small, incorporate it into your routine.
I like that analogy. So not trying to be a saint overnight, just taking small steps.
Right. Gradually shifting your mindset towards abundance and generosity.
Now, what about different professions? Is it easier to be a giver in some fields than others?
That's interesting. Grant does talk about that a bit. He says giving can be good in any job, but it's especially valuable where collaboration is key.
Like education or healthcare,
Exactly. Or even the arts.
where you need to connect with people, build relationships.
Right. And giving can really help with that.
Now, one thing that worries me is that givers might get taken advantage of, especially in competitive fields.
Yeah, that's a valid concern. But remember, being a giver doesn't mean being a pushover.
Right, we talked about sincerity screening and boundaries.
Exactly. And sometimes you have to assert yourself, stand up for your interests.
So be strategic. Make sure your generosity aligns with your goals.
Yes. The goal isn't to win every battle, but to win the war. By being consistently generous and trustworthy, you build a strong reputation.
It's a long game.
Exactly. Investing in relationships that will pay off in the end.
Now, I'm curious, do you have any personal examples of how giving has played out in your own life?
Let me think. Yeah, actually, I do. Early in my career, I was working on this project, and I was really struggling, feeling stuck.
What happened?
I was tempted to give up, but then I reached out to a colleague. He had expertise in the area I was struggling with.
And you asked for help.
Yeah, I was hesitant, didn't want to seem incompetent, but I knew he was a generous guy.
So you took a chance.
I did, and he was so helpful. He spent an hour with me explaining everything, gave me great advice.
So it worked out.
It did. His help was crucial. I was able to finish the project, and I learned a big lesson about asking for help.
That's great. It shows how giving creates this ripple effect.
Yeah, his generosity helped me, and it helped the project.
And it strengthened your belief in giving.
It did. Sometimes we're afraid to ask for help, We think it makes us look weak, but it actually takes courage.
And often, the people who give the most are the ones who've been helped themselves.
It's true. It's this beautiful cycle of reciprocity.
I love that. Okay, so as we wrap up this part, I want to emphasize that giving isn't just altruism. It's a way to achieve our goals and make a positive impact. Our success is interconnected. By helping others, we help ourselves.
That's a really powerful message. I hope our listeners are taking this to heart. We live in a world that often celebrates selfishness and competition. But this book offers a different way. Collaboration, generosity, connection.
It's a message of hope, possibility. We have the power to make the world better, one act of giving at a time. This has been a really great deep dive.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it.
Adam Grant really gave us a lot to think about.
He did. So many great ideas in this book.
Honestly, I'm pretty inspired, like ready to put some of this into practice.
Me too. It's like a whole new way of looking at things.
Yeah, it really challenges those old assumptions about success.
Makes you realize the power of generosity.
And one thing that really struck me was how Grant reframes ambition.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Instead of it being all about personal gain, cutthroat, says true ambition could be a force for good.
Like a more positive kind of ambition.
Exactly. Aligning your aspirations with a desire to make a difference.
It's not about winning at everyone else's expense.
Right. Our success isn't a zero-sum game. It's an opportunity to create positive change.
And that's so important today, With all the challenges we're facing, we need more collaboration.
More people willing to step up and contribute.
Exactly. And this book shows us how to do that, how to be effective givers without getting burnt out.
Right. Finding that balance.
Generosity with self-preservation.
And it doesn't have to be these huge, grand gestures either.
It's the little things, the everyday choices we make.
Offering help, listening, encouraging others.
Just showing up for people.
Being the kind of person who makes the world a little bit better.
And you know what? Giving often comes back to you.
That goes around, comes around.
Exactly. When you put good out there, it tends to come back.
And it's not just about getting something in return. It's the feeling you get from making a difference.
That sense of connection, purpose.
Realizing we're all in this together, helping each other.
It's a powerful feeling.
So one of the key takeaways for me is that giving isn't just nice. It's smart.
It's a strategy for success.
Benefits everyone involved.
It's understanding that we're all connected. Investing in others means investing in ourselves.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave everyone with a challenge.
Oh, what's that?
Embrace the giver philosophy.
In our own lives.
Yeah. Look for those opportunities to make a difference.
Even small ones.
Be the person who lifts others up, spreads generosity.
Remember, giving isn't a sacrifice.
It's an investment.
An investment in ourselves, our communities, and a better future.
Exactly. Well said. And that's our deep dive into Give and Take by Adam Grant. We hope you enjoyed exploring this idea of giving and learn some strategies for success that also make a positive impact. Remember, giving is powerful. It can change your life and the world around you. So go out there, be an otherish giver, and watch what happens. Thanks for joining us.